online. GB News, Britain's news channel.
So Jubes and Kerr, we tackle the issues of the day with real, robust debate, both sides of the fence, battling it out with me in the middle with my forthright opinions and views. And often really interesting things happen because you start with a position and then by the end of the debate you find actually, well, I might not have thought about that one.
What we need in this country is 2 new political parties.
You should maybe think about doing a 2024 calendar. I'm Michelle Dewberry and I'm keeping you company right through until 7 o'clock this evening.
GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's watching.
Very good evening to you. It's 11 o'clock. I'm Aaron Armstrong in the GB newsroom. Jeremy Clarkson's column about Meghan Markle in the Sun newspaper was sexist, according to the press regulator. Ipso ruled some of his comments about the Duchess of Sussex were pejorative and prejudicial. Clarkson wrote he'd dreamed of Meghan being paraded naked through British towns and publicly shamed. A record 25,000 people complained. However, the watchdog rejected complaints the article was racist, inaccurate or harassed the Duchess. 45,000 people have been deployed across France in anticipation of a 4th night of civil unrest. The government's urging parents to keep children at home in a desperate attempt to restore order after more than 900 young people were arrested on Thursday. Large events in France have been cancelled and buses and trams suspended nationwide. Widespread rioting and looting have flared since a 17-year-old boy of Algerian descent was shot dead by police in a suburb of Paris on Tuesday. British holidaymakers are being warned to check for curfews and travel restrictions. The government's aiming to employ 300,000 new staff in England as part of its NHS workforce plan. And more doctors, nurses and other healthcare workers will be trained in addition to creating more university places for medical and nursing students. There will also be a greater emphasis on apprenticeships. The 15-year plan aims to train more staff domestically to reduce reliance on international recruitment and agencies. However, Shadow Health Secretary Wes Streeting says only Labour can be trusted with the NHS.
After 13 years of catastrophic mismanagement of the NHS, which has bred the worst crisis in its history, I'm not surprised the Conservatives are looking to Labour and taking our workforce plan and running with it. I'm sure the country will do that at the next general election too. Labour's got a strong record on the NHS, the shortest waiting times, the highest patient satisfaction in history. And now we've got to build on this workforce plan to go even further.
A court's been told the Oscar-winning actor Kevin Spacey is a sexual bully who exploited his industriousness and influence to sexually assault other men. Prosecutors described Spacey as a man who delights in making others feel powerless and uncomfortable. It was on day 1 of his trial at Southwark Crown Court. He's accused of attacking 4 men in their 20s and 30s during his 12 years in the UK. Mr. Spacey denies all allegations against him. Millions more British people will be given the opportunity to work down under as Australia is set to extend the age limit of its working holiday visa. The extension from 30 to 35 means 16 million British adults are now eligible from tomorrow. The visa duration will also be extended from 2 to 3 years without the need for consecutive stays or farm work. That is it for the moment. You're up to date here on GB News. Now it's time for headliners.
Hello and welcome to Headliners, your first look at Saturday's newspapers with 3 comedians. I'm one of them. I'm Leo Kearse and I'm joined by Steve N. Allen from the MASH Report and the big dog, Nick Dixon from a police report. How you both doing?
Very good, thank you.
It was about me saving lives with that report.
Makes a lot of sense.
How did you save lives? Did you not turn up at a school shooting?
How dare you?
Anyway, that's the amiable chat out of the way. Let's have a look at those front pages. The Telegraph leads with French police at war with vermin as rioting spreads across nation. The Times has UK tourists are warned over travel to France, probably for that reason. The Daily Mail has dentists will have to work for NHS. The Mirror has Kevin Spacey, a sexual bully. The Guardian has Goldsmith quits over Sunak climate apathy. And finally, the Daily Star has Rack off, you great galaz. And those were your front pages. And let's have a closer look at those front pages with the Times and the Telegraph. Steve, what have they got?
Yeah, the Times goes with UK tourists are warned over travel to France, as you say, because of the violence, the protests, and also because of the risk of curfew. I mean, it'd be a waste of a holiday, wouldn't it? You go over there, you can't do anything.
Yeah.
Although the curfews haven't been brought in yet, it's only speculation. There's certainly been violence, which has included fireworks being set off, so something to write home about if you're on holiday.
Well, yeah, that could be quite spectacular. But, I mean, there's been a lot more than fireworks. There's been, I've seen assault weapons being fired in the air. Marseille's largest library was set on fire, possibly destroying ancient historical texts.
And it's interesting about the violence spreading, because that seems like more this moment is a catalyst and it is revealing pressure and unease that's already there. I mean, even in Brussels there's been reports of things happening. So this is spreading, it's addressing... So there's two issues, isn't there? The actual thing that caused it, that kicked off all of this, and the underlying pressures.
And the thing that kicked it off was the shooting of I think it was 17-year-old, yeah.
Nahel M. Yeah, I mean, there's a video of him. He sort of seems to drive away, and the policeman shoots him. It seems to be... People have said he was aiming for his foot, but he hit him in the chest, and he killed him. So obviously any murder or killing with a... I don't want to say murder because not legally, but with a racial element of it kicks off, doesn't it?
Yeah, but I mean, I guess if a policeman's pointing a gun at you, do what he says.
Yeah, general rule, but I don't know enough about it to sort of, you know, say my talking points yet until I know the exact...
Yeah.
But some French politicians, I mean, the left-wing leader Mélenchon has been praising the riots and saying, you know, this is good and carry on.
Well, they do love a riot, don't they, France? I mean, no one does a riot like France.
But I mean,
But you're saying he's stoking the... Yeah, I mean, this is what the left do, though. They stoke these kind of riots. They love it. It's like America post-George Floyd. They love stoking a riot. I thought Steve was going to come back there. The token member of the
Steve
left
agrees with you, Nick.
No, he's looking around going, oh, they've got me blank.
He knows he stokes riots at the weekend, that's what it is. He wouldn't have a leg to stand on.
I'm busy on the weekends. I just think you could say this much. Traffic stops shouldn't end in shootings. It's a problem that America has. You can understand if a burglary is happening or something where the policeman might be in danger, but if a car is driving away from you, it feels like you're not in danger.
Yeah, but also, I mean, we've seen police chases, we've seen car chases. I mean, the police use force to end those car chases.
Yeah, but I don't think this is exactly the same. If you are in a car chase and something happens that injures the driver, that is very different to, this person's not doing what I said, I'm not at risk, but I will fire anyway. All
right, so assuming the rioters are justified in, you know, this sort of pressure being released because they've seen this horrific, allegedly racist, alleged, you know, killing, alleged murder. I mean, how much looting? How many? We saw a Yamaha dealership being looted. I mean, how many motorbikes have to be stolen? How many truckers have to be stopped and dragged out of their trucks and stabbed before there's justice?
No, it's not. That shouldn't happen at all. I don't think it's an either-or. You can say you shouldn't have violence spreading across a country and you shouldn't shoot people in traffic stops.
Yeah. And Nick, I mean, Macron has been, even though he's really sagging in the polls at the moment, he's been doing nothing. He went to see Elton John.
Yeah, some people said he was stoking this. I mean, I don't see what a curfew's going to do. It's not particularly effective. Do you think rioters particularly care about the laws of a curfew? Do you think they're like, oh, I better stop my rioting now because it's struck 10 o'clock? You know what I mean? So I'm not totally convinced. But yeah, Macron, I'm always amazed Macron's still there because everyone seems to hate him in France. You know, you had the yellow vest protest, things like this. But he sort of endures, doesn't he, despite that? He's kind of like Sturgeon, but eventually maybe he'll get his comeuppance. You know how she stayed far too long when she seemed awful?
Well, it's looking like that's going to happen at the next election, whenever that is. I'm not actually sure when the next French election is, but I mean, he's really down in the polls.
Okay.
And in fact, Le Pen is up in the polls. And this is, I mean, I'd imagine that this would play to her base.
But also, do you not think whoever wins the next French election will simply say, oh, don't worry, we won't change retirement age? Like, the same level of protest seemed to kick off about changing the retirement age by 2 years.
That's true.
So that's probably the vote winner.
OK, well, moving on, Nick, what have they got in the rest of the Telegraph front page?
So Telegraph has, apart from obviously the France story, it's got Sunak in deal with Italy to stem migrant flow in Mediterranean. And this is a strategic migration partnership, and it will mirror the agreement with France by being ineffective in achieving... by boosting intelligence sharing on people smugglers, joint operations and work by border forces. So So they didn't really solve that. Now they're going to not solve this. That's my cynical take. But they've sent, don't worry, they've sent Simon Case over there, who came out one of the worst in the lockdown files that were released. He came across almost worse than Matt Hancock, which is an extraordinary achievement. So obviously he's the guy to fix migration. And they're going to do an Albanian-style returns agreement. Always check the returns policy is a good good note with Tunisia. And this is how they're going to try and solve it. So it's just going to be similar cooperation like we have with France. I mean, I'll believe it when I see it. I hope it works.
But I mean, you say it hasn't worked so well, or it's not going to work. I mean, the crossings from Libya have been slashed. I mean, not completely eradicated, but slashed from 181,000 to 38,000, which is a substantial decrease.
And annoyingly for some, the solution to these problems will be about having what seem like weak agreements. It'll be about negotiation, about deals. Loads of people just want it to be a forceful stop to this. Let's force the stop of it. But I mean, the Albania-style return system has done all right as well. Yeah. And none of them will be as effective as the Moldovan one, which Rishi negotiated, which I think would have impacted one person over a 12-month period. So that person must really feel like a lot of effort has been gone to get them out of this country. But it's got to be annoyingly small, petty deals that add together to achieve something.
Yeah. So you're quite pro-Sunak on this, really?
Well, I just don't think it's bad to have these agreements, and if they do work...
Yeah, you've got to try it, yeah.
OK, well, that's good. What's on the front cover of the Daily Mail, Steve?
Dentists will have to work for the NHS because we're paying for their training. So if you get taxpayer-funded training, the least you could do, it would be polite to hang around and help out some of those taxpayers with their lack of teeth. Instead of going straight into private. You can still do private and you do NHS. It's not like you're forced to work out your indentured servitude is a pun I should have thought of because of denture. It's too late now.
It's not too late. You can still do it.
You just did it. You literally did it.
But this is a similar system to the NHS, isn't it? So if you're an NHS-trained doctor, then you have your private practice, and you also do. I think you're beholden to do some consultancy on the NHS as well.
Yeah, I don't see what the problem is. It would be really great to get an easier time trying to get to see a dentist, which is bizarre. You know, when we're all growing up, you hated the idea of seeing a dentist, so now you have to beg to be able to go through that ordeal. So I think this is a good move. Why am I wrong?
No, I don't think you are. I think, the fact they've had training, which has been subsidised by taxpayers, you think that does seem reasonable to then do a few years giving back. I wouldn't have either. I wouldn't have the NHS or the obligation to work for the NHS, so I'm consistent in that way. I'd scrap the whole thing. But if you're going to have one, it seems fair to have the other.
Well, this is what I was going to say. Why don't we just not have the taxpayer subsidising dentists?
Wild idea.
Why are we subsidising? They're going to earn loads of money. Surely there's an incentive there to take out a loan and pay for it yourself, and then you can become a dentist, and people can pay for you to fix their teeth.
Yeah, and then you could have dentists competing and actually somewhere near your house. You wouldn't have to travel 50 miles in a rural area, you know what I mean?
Yeah, instead of this sort of socialist Soviet-era system where the state looks after your teeth.
Yeah, maybe like an Uber where they come to your house. How about that? You order a dentist and they come to your house, quickly set up all the stuff. Why not?
Just do it in the back of a van.
Well, I'm just. I mean,
it's a money saving. When you said I would have neither, I thought you were going to say NHS dentist or private dentist. I thought yourself.
No. I meant. No. I'm not Lewis Schaefer. He doesn't believe in toothbrushing, of course. No. I believe in it all, but I just wouldn't have. Yeah, I just think. Yeah, they don't force people to work for the NHS by not having one. It's an ingenious solution.
Yeah.
Some sort of radical libertarian solution, I'm afraid.
And finally, what's on the front cover of the Daily Star, Nick?
Yeah, we got rack off your great galahs and.
Great accent there, Nick.
Yeah, I didn't go for the accent. I just thought, let's not embarrass myself. But further. But it's about the visa. The working visas have changed. And basically, it was 30. Now they've upped it to 35. You'll be able to get a working holiday visa if you're British in Australia. And you'll be able to stay there up to 3 years living and working. And, of course, why not? They've got a better health system, better immigration policy. They've got a son. Of course, I'm saying why not to most people. I can't because I managed to get minor skin cancer. I'm fair-haired. I can't leave this country ever.
You could wear a hat.
No, Leo.
You could wear a fedora.
It was on my arm.
Other men on the
What's the hat? It was on my arm.
All right, wear a hat on your arm. Wear a shirt.
I'm patriotic at a cellular level, Leo. I'm not supposed to leave England ever. But for other people, this is a great opportunity.
Steve, are you tempted?
Yeah, actually, it's not a bad idea. And also, let's realise this will help net migration figures.
Yeah.
The more people who think, let's go elsewhere, is going to help the tally. So, maybe it's helping.
Yeah, although, I think migration isn't just about the figures. It's about who is coming and who is going.
And that's looking at the net migration. People forget the other side of it.
Yeah.
The more people we could just convince to leave, that figure will get lower.
OK.
You're all about emigration. Send them not back, but just send them away.
Isn't that how Australia started?
Yeah, kind of.
Yeah. I mean, the trouble with Australia is it's the people have got this great attitude of, anything goes. Some of them do. About 10% of the population who seem to have gone into the criminal justice system are incredibly authoritarian. Because it's a nation that's descended from criminals and from prison guards.
Yeah, and we saw that during COVID. It went a bit towards the latter, didn't it?
Yeah.
I also probably wouldn't go there because everything can kill you. I like living in a country where I could probably take most of the animals.
Yeah. Everything's massive, like giant spiders, sharks,
and all the poison.
dogs. Instead of dogs, they've got dingoes. Like, can we have one element that doesn't kill us? And even kangaroos can punch your face in easily.
And drown you. They can push you into the water and drown
Really?
you. I found out. Yeah, apparently
Is that a
kangaroos,
kind of hard way?
they lurk in the water trying to lure you in. I saw that this is a legit thing.
Not
Unless
crocodile.
I've just spent too long on the internet. They sit there just bobbing up and down in the water. You think, there's a kangaroo, I'm going to go down and say hello to it. And then when you're in the water, they push you down and you're dead. I don't know if they eat you or what happens. But anyway, that's the front page is done. Join us in part 2 for a rummage under the covers where we'll be covering banks cancelling people over their political views, Channel 4 cancelling Andrew Neal, and Ipso cancelling Jeremy Clarkson. See you in 2 minutes.
First and foremost, I'm a GB News fan, and I was before I was working here. Just love the fact that we're asking the questions that a lot of establishment media won't ask.
With a bit of a twist, we not only want to inform you, but we want to keep you entertained.
It's worth the drive because you get in and the team's all ready and waiting, they're itching to go, and it's a proper little family.
GB News is the people's channel.
It's the audience that makes the programme sing.
We're giving our viewers and our listeners a voice. I see the thousands of your letters, tweets, emails, you name it, coming in.
Britain is broken. How on earth did we get into this mess? But more importantly, how do we get out of it?
The establishment had their chance. Now we're here to represent you.
It's time for something different. It's time for GB News. I'm very patriotic. I believe in Britain. Our best days lie ahead.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
Join us here on GB News.
The people's channel.
Britain's news channel.
I'm Andrew Doyle. Join me at 7 o'clock every Sunday night for Free Speech Nation, the show where I tackle the week's biggest stories in politics and current affairs with the help of my 2 comedian panellists and a variety of special guests.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights from 7 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Nightmare commute? Kick it up a gear with me, Patrick Christie's, at Drive Time, 3 till 6 p.m, Monday to Friday on GB News Radio. You can listen online and on DAB+, on the smart speaker app, and on the GB News app. And if you've got an Alexa, all you have to say is, Alexa, play GB News. We're also on TuneIn and the Radio Player apps. From the school run to rush hour, get revved up with me, Patrick Christie's, on GB News and GB News Radio.
What you get for breakfast is something that, if we do our jobs right, you will wake up to news that you didn't know the night before.
It's a conversation. It's not just me and Eamon.
We want to get to know you, and we want you to get to know us.
From 6, it's Breakfast with Eamon and Isabel.
Monday to Thursdays on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Westminster is going around in ever-decreasing circles, followed by the media. Britain is broken. How on earth did we get into this mess? But more importantly, how do we get out of it? Join me at 7 p.m, Mondays to Thursdays on Farage, here on GB News. We will have open, rational debate. We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this. Join us here on GB News, the People's Channel. Britain is watching.
Every Sunday from 11, join Michael Portillo.
There will be topical discussion, looking at the week before and the week to come. So kick back and relax at 11 a.m. on Sundays on GB News with me, Michael Portillo. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Headliners. I'm your host, Leo Kears, here with the motley crew of Steve N. Allen and Nick, the big dog, Dixon. Kicking things off with the Mail now. And as Pride Month ends with its message of inclusivity, some businesses are still discriminating against people, Steve.
Some banks, a major British building society technically, admits that it is closing accounts of people who are rude or discriminate amid uproar as banks accused of dumping customers like Nigel Farage over their views on Brexit and LGBT issues. Well, it's almost as if when you read the story, there are other stories in there of people who've had their accounts cancelled who actually might be a more worrying story, because we don't know whether it's Nigel's views or the fact that the EU marks him out as a politically, exposed person.
Yeah.
And if so, then banks have, who knows, there's a whole thing to dig into.
But isn't a politically exposed person just anybody involved in politics?
The tricky thing, yeah, that's the problem with the definition, it's so vague. But the bigger worry is like this story of a bloke who gets in touch with his building society, asks why there were so many pride flags and gets their account cancelled.
Yeah.
That person is not politically exposed. That is more of a worry. But I will say about the Nigel Farage thing, I don't think, even if you disagree with everything he's ever said, surely you don't want him to lose a bank. You don't win the argument by going, oh, well, at least now he has to use a Swiss bank.
Yeah.
There's no win there. And I don't think loads of people think it's a win. Some people on Twitter think it's funny. Maybe if small people think it's good. But my word, they're the vocal ones.
I mean, mainly, it seems to be horrifyingly authoritarian, Nick.
Yeah, it's horrific. And the bank, well, the Building Society here talks about they can close the account of anyone who's rude, abusive, violent. You're sort of like, well, there's something in that. And then they go, or discriminates in any way, which is extraordinarily broad definition.
So if you don't like Crocs...
Right, the word comes from to separate or distinguish or make a distinction. So it's like just any distinctions are out, because obviously that can be used, and it has been used for this man Toby Young talked about, who said he didn't understand why there needed to be pride flags all over the branch, and then he had his account shut down. That's how arbitrary it is. And Steve talking about Twitter, I mean, people here, some guy called Keith Burge said, first they came for Nigel Farage, and they held the door open and pointed at Nigel Farage. So he thinks it's a big lark. And then Kay Burley, of all people, said, if 8 separate banks don't want your custom, I suppose you'd start to wonder why. It's like, oh, great take.
Oh,
siding
my God.
with the fascists.
I mean, would you say that to a Chinese political dissident?
Exactly.
Okay? I mean, that's an absolute nonsense. I mean, and also for them to say they'll refuse custom to somebody who discriminates, that in itself is discriminating. So they should
shut their own bank.
Shut their own bank down.
Yeah, that would solve the problem somehow, wouldn't it? But it still feels like it's not the battleground that's worth winning. So even those tweets, maybe there's a smug, enjoyable smile that they have, but at the end of it, no one's going to go like, yeah, we won that one, because Brexit still happened, but now he banks elsewhere.
Yeah, and in fact, if anything, it's going to, enrage the public and motivate them against this kind of thing. Instead of trying to build a consensus and include everybody.
Yeah, but there has to be some sort of legislation, doesn't there, to make sure they can't do this. I can't see another solution.
Well, the Equality Act of 2010 means that I believe, as I understand it, means you can't deny custom to, somebody, so say, for example, for their sexuality. So I'd have thought, that should be updated to cover political opinions.
You think, but there used to be a law you had to have a bank account, right? And then they scrapped that law, so they don't actually have that. You're saying it should be covered by 2010, but apparently, obviously, isn't, is it? It's been usurped by this politically exposed person thing that comes from the EU, and anyone can be and the justification is we don't want the extra hassle and the extra paperwork and the extra cost, the bank can say, but the problem is you need to get rid of that rule, which is being abused clearly.
Yeah. I mean, this is just Chinese social credit scores brought to Western Europe when we think we live in a democracy. Yeah. It's a nonsense. Anyway, moving on, we've got The Guardian now, and do you think Andrew Neal might be regretting flouncing off GB News, Nick?
Yeah, it's a sad one here. Andrew Neal's show is latest victim of Channel 4 cuts. And obviously we take no pleasure in this at all, but Channel 4 has axed or paused a number of shows due to a slump in advertising, and they don't even have the excuse of having people boycotting them. We've got all sorts of mad campaigns, Stop Funding Hate, and all these absolute idiots making sure we're boycotted. They're just not very good, so that's what's happened there. And it is tough. It's been a tough time for Andrew Neal. First, he had the world's smallest private jet at GB News, and that was very sad for him. And now he's lost his Channel 4 show, so it's tough. But he always was, let's face it, a slightly strange... Of course, he's a great broadcaster. It was a strange match, I thought, Andrew Neal at Channel 4, because they're ultra-woke lefties, and he, runs The Spectator, so I thought that was quite strange.
He seemed much more of a natural match for GB News.
Yeah, you'd think.
Yeah.
This story also mentions the other shows that aren't being brought back, including reality series 4 Weddings. They put here Hairdresser Show with a big blowout. I'm glad they did, otherwise I would have guessed that was a different show. And Rescue Extreme Medics.
Yeah.
I've not watched telly in a while. I have no idea what these shows are.
They're all excellent.
Are they?
Yeah,
Oh,
you missed off Kirsty Allsop's Kirsty's Handmade Christmas.
She had a go at me on Twitter.
She did?
The other day, so I'm glad. I'm glad. Guess what, Kirsty? I'm still on TV. How'd you like that? How'd you like them apples?
Your Christmas isn't going to be handmade, though, so...
No, I'm going to buy it in a shop. With all the money I make from being on TV, Kirsty. That's how I roll. Anyway, moving on. We've got the Telegraph, and the US Supreme Court has decided not to make bus drivers and welders pay for rich kids to do gender studies degrees, Nick.
Oh yeah, this is very important. So the US Supreme Court blocks Joe Biden's $400 billion student debt relief plan. And as you say, you know, there's a certain sympathy I have for students who are in massive debt, but of course the burden can't fall on the taxpayers. The parents have to say to them, and the students themselves have to say, is it worth it doing gender nonsense and then owing £100,000 dollars? Sorry, probably not. I mean, in some rare cases, maybe there's some like Ivy League prestige or something still. But yeah, they've shut down this, and of course Biden is up in arms. But I think it's the only right decision, isn't it?
Yeah.
Although, just to be the annoying guy who gives the flip side...
That's what you're here for.
That's what I'm here for, that's true, actually. Just to keep it off, come happy, I'm aware of that now. It was a campaign promise, so everyone who voted for him knew it was a promise that he'd follow through on it, so more people voted for it than not. And there are rules in there. It's not just about paying off rich people's debts, is it? I mean, the level that you have to be earning under is quite a lot, $125,000. I guess that's quite a lot. But also, there's extra reductions for those getting a grant for lower-income families. So it would have been skewed towards helping poorer people. Whether that is a mitigation to it or not, I don't know. It's up to you.
Yeah, I mean, I just think it's ridiculous to have a system where taxpayers have to pay for people to do something that benefits, you know, generally middle-class people go to university. And also, it would be a very inflationary move to slash all this debt so people felt richer, so they went out and they spent money that they suddenly felt that they had. That would spike inflation up again. So a ridiculous idea. And the government the American government can't afford $400 billion.
And they probably just spend the extra money on more gender studies degrees because they're addictive.
Exactly, something that's no use to anyone. Anyway, moving on, we've got The Independent, and the press regulator has basically ruled that comedy is banned from newspapers, Steve.
The Jeremy Clarkson story, press watchdog upholds sexism complaint over Meghan Markle column. It's interesting that that's the only part that's upheld. I mean, the column where he said that he dreamed of her walking through the streets being smeared with excrement. Even he apologised for it. Even he's not thinking...
That was a big mistake.
But he called it disgraceful and he was profoundly sorry. It still became the most complained about thing. It's interesting about... look, we should give the context. It was a Game of Thrones reference. Yeah. But maybe it didn't do it particularly well. It wasn't a well-executed joke.
I thought it was great. It was really funny. I got the joke. It was hyperbole. We see this in comedy. People go to extremes. You know, you say things like, I'm going to kill you with a dolphin tied to a, lamppost or something. And it's like, it's not meant to be serious. Obviously, if he'd said something, a minor slight, that could have been taken seriously. He obviously doesn't actually want Meghan Markle to march through the streets and be pelted with excrement. I mean, he does, and we all do. But, I mean, it's a joke.
I think the interesting thing, though, is about the sexism part of it. You can find that those comments are pejorative and prejudicial, but surely it should be just as insulting to say it about Harry.
Yeah.
So it's not sexism. Other complaints, but why sexism is the one that's upheld?
Yeah, the best part here, though, is that they've upheld the sexism part, right? But they do say ipso rejected complaints that the piece was inaccurate. So actually, it is quite accurate that you should want to see her paraded through the streets with excrement on her. I mean, is that what that means? And they also rejected that it was racist. Yeah, it's so absurd. People didn't get the joke. It was obviously a joke. You hadn't watched Game of Thrones. That's on you because everyone's watched it. But people are so stupid now and take everything so literally.
I don't think everyone's watched it. I think we live in a world where people comment about TV shows way more than actually watch it. It's not like the old days when there were 5 channels. Yeah. So maybe loads of people, unless you actually put the words Game of Thrones in, didn't get the joke.
Of course, in the original, she's being persecuted by an extremist sect. They kind of resemble woke people. They're extremist religious cult, but they kind of resemble the woke. And so we're on her side, even though she's sometimes a villain, Cersei. We're on her side at that moment. So actually, in context, how is that even sexist? Although Clarkson...
So an EBSO are now effectively, metaphorically parading Jeremy Clarkson through the street and pelting him with excrement.
In the actual scene, though, the woman who shouts out that really swear word that you can't say on TV, that was a funny moment. Do you know what I think? Have you not seen it?
Shout it now, Steve, because we don't know which one you mean.
Is that how I get to stay on telly? Oh, I'll give it a
go. I think the real problem is that Meghan's quite annoying. Anyway, we've got the Telegraph now, and porn will apparently be made safer by more facials, Steve.
Facial scanning technology could block children from harmful online content. The plan is that you'd have to have your face scanned to access pornography. You do not want to see what faces I pull when I'm...
But I think it's before you get to that point. It's when you log in, which hopefully you're not pulling that face already. That is quite premature.
I'm a busy man. Ministers have unveiled this toughened-up rules. Originally, there was plans that you'd have to show ID, but now all of these plans, I'm never convinced that they'd work. If you can scan someone's face and tell their age, good. Can I please buy an energy drink in a self-scan till without having to wait for the person to come over and agree with me?
That's a great point.
This is my problem. I mean, obviously, it's good that kids shouldn't be allowed to watch porn, but they've tried this face technology at several supermarkets. How am I going to watch porn in the supermarket? This is my big concern. It's ruining my hobbies.
I'm more annoyed if I'm one behind you in the queue. Like, it's going to take ages.
And also, Nick, I mean, you look too young, so...
Thanks, mate.
You're going to have to, yeah. Anyway, that's it for part 2, but coming up in part 3, we've got half a bottle of ketchup, a gay website, and men with pitchforks. That's my Saturday night planned. Don't go away.
Like all families, we have arguments every now and then, but actually we agree on what the mission of GB News is, and that's the most fundamentally important thing.
GB News provides the kind of platform that lets all voices be heard. We don't hold back. We're free to say what we really think.
Just because some people who live in a tiny little Westminster bubble think that their particular story is important, that's not the most important story for me.
And often there will be difficult stories that you won't find on the establishment media.
Because what people think in the north of England may be very different to what they're thinking in the home counties.
We're going to carry on telling the world what life is really like for households up and down the UK.
We love to be in your car, in your kitchen as you're having your breakfast. Whatever you're doing, you are part of the show. If it matters to you, it matters to us.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News,
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Join me, Patrick Christie's, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6. We tackle the day's news agenda like you've never seen before. It's high tempo, high octane, the most controversial topics, and the best guests. You will not be able to take your eyes and ears off it. I'm not afraid to ask the questions that you really want answered. 3 till 6 p.m, Monday to Friday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, on Sunday mornings from 9:30, taking the politicians to task and breaking out of SW1 to see how their decisions are affecting you across the UK. Bursting the Westminster bubble every Sunday morning, only on GB News, the People's Channel. Britain's watching.
Join us every night on GB News at 11 p.m. for Headliners, which is 3 top comedians going through the next day's news stories, which is exactly what you need, because when the establishment has gone crazy, you need some craziness to make sense of it. So join us 11 p.m. every night on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Dan Wootton. You can watch me live on GB News Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. And did you know that you can also watch and listen live on our website, gbnews.com. You'll always be up to date on the latest breaking news, as well as enjoying the best stories, opinions, and shows. You can even join the debate under our live player as you're watching. So head straight to gbnews.com on TV, radio, and online. GB News, Britain's news channel.
So Jubes and Kerr, we tackle the issues of the day with real robust debate, both sides of the fence, battling it out with me in the middle with my forthright opinions and views. And often really interesting things happen because you start with a position and then by the end of the debate you find actually, well, I might not have thought about that one.
What we need in this country is 2 new political parties.
You should maybe think about doing a 2024 calendar. I'm Michelle Dewberry and I'm keeping you company right through until 7 o'clock this evening.
GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's watching.
And I'm keeping you company right through.
Welcome back to Headliners. We're kicking things off with The Guardian, and it's been a busy day for the Supreme Court. They've made another ruling, this time about gay websites, Nick.
Yeah, so US Supreme Court strikes blow against LGBTQ+ rights with Colorado ruling, and that is The Guardian's headline with a classic Guardian spin. Of course, it's not an attack on anyone's rights in that sense. It's about Laurie Smith, the owner of 303 Creative, which is a web design company, and she didn't want to have to make wedding websites for gay couples. So it's much like the gay cake thing. It's the karma for the gay cake case. So everyone was trying to make that Christian guy bake a cake celebrating gay marriage. He didn't want to. He won that case, and that's kind of set off this thing in Colorado. People saying, well, hang on, we need to protect ourselves against this in future. So this ruling now will protect your free expression because it's deemed artistic expression, so you won't be forced to do something against your beliefs. And this is actually, it's not just for Christians. It means like a Muslim wouldn't be forced to promote alcohol, or a Democrat wouldn't be forced to make a sort of pro-Trump film or something. So that's why it's actually a great ruling, and The Guardian are totally wrong. She's not going to not serve a gay person on her website. It's just about protected beliefs and not the government not being able to compel you to speak against your conscience.
If a gay couple said we'd love a website about marriage, is that what you do when you get married? You have your website, of course you do. She wouldn't make. Maybe you should have. You've got to register with your website. But she would turn them down. She would say, no, I'm not.
Well, she would turn down that specific request. She wouldn't turn them down on the basis that they're gay or their immutable characteristics, but on
But now she could. This ruling means
But not for being gay, but for wanting a specific service that contradicts her beliefs. So would you want a Democrat to be forced to make a pro-Trump thing? Or the examples I've just cited?
I want that one.
I mean, that is funny, yeah.
If it's the service you offer, then why don't you offer it for everyone? The thing that I compare this to is, like, I don't think a business should pick and choose who they give a service to, and that's why I think Nigel Farage should have a bank account. So I'm not going to flip my position.
No, but this is the other way around. This is the individual protecting their rights of free speech and free expression against the state. You're talking about really the other way around, big corporations or the state attacking individuals.
Yeah, I mean, where do you draw the line between what's providing a service and what's artistic expression? Because they're saying, I mean, the cake was artistic expression because, you ice it or whatever. I mean, I'm told that's art. Now, a website is art. I mean, I've never been to a museum, an art gallery, and looked at websites.
They're all online.
I mean, couldn't Barclays say, hey, our bank accounts are art, so you can't have one?
I think it still falls under free expression, which ultimately falls under free speech.
But then, so the free speech defence, which is the point that was used, she's still free to say, I don't agree with gay marriage whilst making a website.
No, but you're...
What my point is more that her speech is fine. It's as an action, not speech.
It can be seen as an action, yeah, but even then, it's forced labour. It's a very strange thing to extract a service when you say, it's my right to force you to make me a cake or a website. That can't be the case.
I suppose it's people checking on who you discriminate against.
Yeah, but there's a difference between discriminating against someone and forcing... You don't have a right to force a service out of someone.
So someone can offer a service and go, I'm providing this service... But it's like putting up the sign that says no Irish, no blacks, no dogs.
It's really not. Why should you go against your religious beliefs and be forced to perform a service that directly contradicts your beliefs, whether it's a Christian or a Muslim or someone's political beliefs or any of their beliefs?
Well, you don't have to provide the service at all. But why do you think you get to discriminate against a group?
You're saying you do have to provide the service. That's what you're saying.
No, I'm saying you don't have to provide the service at all. If you don't
the whole website. You don't want to be in the. You just can't be in business at all.
If you don't want to do wedding websites, which I'm sure is a huge sector, then why do you think, I'm going to do wedding websites, but not the ones I don't like? Because they make the point in the article, which might be a bit Guardian-ish, about what happens if someone makes websites but don't like mixed-race couples, which is surely an even smaller niche of people after a wedding website. Still, all of this falls down to who the hell is getting a wedding website?
You've been a comedian, Steve. It's like perhaps still are. It's like forcing you to do like every comedy venue. What if there's a venue you don't want to do? So you have to do it. You sign up to be a comedian. You have to do Preston, Frog and Bucky. It's in Preston. It doesn't exist anymore.
I have to take all of those gigs.
That's
OK, well, moving on. We've got the Metro now, and the Co-op is going for that Wetherspoons condiment section vibe, Steve.
Yeah, you can get half-empty bottles of ketchup because of shoplifting. Dairy milk bars, Ferrero Rocher are locked away in Co-op. Of course, Ferrero Rocher is top end. Of course, that would be. Yeah. This is all because of increased shoplifting. But it's the first time that they've seen anything worth £1.35, which is the fruit and nut that's been locked away as well.
That's locked away in one of those things that you've got to get removed at the tills.
And this is the problem with it. This is slowing down buying stuff. It's effectively turning all shops into an Argos at some stage. You'll just have a catalogue of things that you can't nick, and then you have to go and try and order it. I lived in Hackney for a while, and the co-op there had a massive problem with shoplifting. Not just me. But you'd be in there and people would just walk in with a bag and just absolutely fill it and walk out. No one did anything about it. And it's more galling when you're stood queuing. Like, literally, I'm taking up more time to do the paying part of this than this guy did.
Yeah.
So something needs to be done, but I don't want to live in a world where all foods are locked away.
Yeah, Steve's stolen the one joke I had on this. I was going to say it's turned every shop into an Argos because
Well, really?
I don't think it's
I'm going to change it.
It isn't stolen it. You're both just very hack and come up with unoriginal ideas.
It's turned every shop into a blockbuster video. Because basically, you'd have to, in the future, Leo, would be like picking up a picture of a lettuce, bringing it to the tills, like something like this, then they'll give you a sort of rubbish version of that. Yeah, that's where we're going.
That's basically online shopping. Anyway, we've got the Mail again, and in news that will surprise nobody, Apple is worth a lot of money, Nick.
Yeah, they're doing all right. Apple becomes the first company to achieve a market value of $3 trillion after a relentless rally of 50% this year. So apparently they'll need to close at or above $190.74, that is $190.74 to actually cement it. So it's not, I don't know, it's not totally official, but it's pretty much official. And imagine how big they'd be if they sorted out the batteries problem. I mean, they could be absolutely massive. But of course, they're giving credit to Tim Cook, and he does deserve credit. But the real credit goes to Steve Jobs and Wozniak, of course, for doing all this in the first place. From their garage, Steve. Yeah. I've seen the Ashton Kutcher movie.
The two Steves. This is the good thing about being called Steve. Clearly, you're great at stuff.
Yeah, what
have you made, Steve?
Well, I've left it mainly to Jobs and Wozniak. They're pulling a lot of the weight for the Steves, I'll give them that.
Yeah, but if they point out here quite pedantically that the Dutch East India Company remains the highest valuation of $9 trillion for the tulip mania of the 1630s.
And that was a bubble that inflated where tulip bulbs were changing hands for, I think it was thousands or tens of thousands of pounds or whatever, pfennigs or whatever people used.
It wasn't a bubble, those tulips were worth it.
And that's been compared to, crypto and Dogecoin and all the rest of it.
I don't have a massive take on this. It was already worth $3 trillion. It's just technically this would be worth $3 trillion when the market's closed rather than a point it reached during the day.
Right.
Oh, that's a lot of difference.
Yeah.
It's a Nan story, OK?
It's a Nan story. OK, moving on. We've got The Guardian now warning the super rich about mobs with pitchforks. I don't think they realise the super rich can afford men with machine guns, Steve.
The bigger problem is that we can't afford pitchforks. The super rich warn that pitchforks and torches could head their way unless they tackle inequality. This was a do at London Savoy, which is, really where you want to start upsetting people about this. The global elite, I thought we hated those, were told that they risked civil disruption unless they helped more. So it's this person called Julia Davis, being somewhat hyperbolic, I imagine, by talking about this, but saying you rich people should do a bit more. She's the founder of the Patriotic Millionaires UK group. A classic example of put the word patriotic in it and people will fall for it, which does work. But
wouldn't work with Guardian readers. Patriotic Guardian readers.
Bad thing, is it? Yeah. Well,
patriotic Labour voters.
No, I'm sure there's a slice of those, the old red wall. But the actual story is really
patriotic for this country.
Yeah.
Anyway,
the actual story is actually quite dull because it's not about pitchforks. It's saying, oh, your philanthropy should be done slightly differently, more towards what's needed rather than what makes you rich people feel good about what you're giving. But that's why they give. So none of this will ever be solved.
So what's the issue with the philanthropy now?
Well, I'll get on to it later. There's so many fun things about this article. Firstly, the writer was called Rupert. He may not be part of the super rich, but he's part of the super posh. Secondly, they're saying there's a real risk of actual insurrection, but the bar for insurrection is pretty low now. It's basically a bloke in a funny hat being given a guided tour. So let's just remember that.
A picnic near a government building.
Right. Number three, I was out with some members of the super rich last night. They seem fine. They're doing fine. They're pretty chill, and their wives are hot. They're doing all right. But number four, I've got another point. This Patriotic Millionaires, they're not patriotic, they're sort of globalists who care about climate change and stuff. And Millionaires isn't really super rich now, but that'll even get your house in London. But on the actual main point here, whether there is a serious worry about the rich, worrying that people will take over and usurp them and sort of have an insurrection. I do sometimes think, post-2008 crash, they got worried about things like Occupy Wall Street. They're like, oh no, the people are rioting. And that they invented wokeness. Notice how wokeness kicked off sort of around that time,
and
2010.
Now everybody's worried about pronouns instead of actual material things.
It's a distraction. It's a sort of, here you go, we'll stick up a pride flag, but we'll carry on basically screwing you. And that's my theory on that. And
also millionaires, I mean, they own businesses and properties, so they love mass migration because it's cheap labour for the businesses. It's also customers for the businesses, and it pushes up the prices of property because all those people have to live somewhere.
Yeah.
So that's that one covered. Anyway, we've got the Mail now, and Just Stop Oil have gone to war with the gays. Don't they know that lube is water-based now, Steve?
Shocking. Oh, I thought this was mine.
Oh, wait, is it
If
yours?
it's lube-related, normally it's me, but I think this is...
I'll have a
You
crack
can
at it.
both. You can double end this one.
Yeah, so now Just Stop Oil threaten London's Pride Parade. Eco-zealots tell organisers they may disrupt events if their demands are not met. Sound a bit like terrorists. This is a tricky one. Just Stop Oil versus Pride. It's like Godzilla versus King Kong. It's like, who do you support? But actually, they're both too cool. It's more like a Savile versus Glitter. Anyway, I don't know who to support because they're both so awful. Is that fair enough? Is that OK? I don't know. And there's...
Your bank account is getting cancelled.
Yeah, definitely. So Pride are saying that it's that they're in an increasingly hostile and unsafe world, which is silly. And then, you know, Just Stop Oil think that we're in an unsafe world that's collapsing immediately. They're sort of both wrong. They're both catastrophizing, but actually they're both aiding societal collapse with their kind of annoying hijinks. So it is kind of funny that these two are attacking each other. It's just a declining West, different leftist groups infighting while everything collapses, basically.
Yeah, one protest group attacking another protest group is getting pretty Python at this stage, isn't it? But in some ways... good, I suppose. That it seems it's nice that a painting doesn't have to be defaced for once, because it got a bit samey for a while, didn't it? Orange powder thrown at stuff, which I'm sure could still happen.
But now there could be some rainbow crosswalks that are going to get covered. Yeah. I mean, and also, I mean, Pride is about, or certainly used to be about, adult, you know, gay and lesbian people having equal rights, and now it's, you know, then it got distended into trans people, gender issues, queer and kink, and all sorts of things that had nothing to do with lesbian and gay people. And now they're like, oh, we want you to also be campaigning for new oil, like no new oil and gas. It's like this is Pride. This is a completely separate issue.
Add a little bit for oil on the flag now. Yeah, I mean that is the one thing. That I was going to give Just Stop Oil a little bit of credit. Their one point. They might have something in that Pride now is empty corporate virtue signalling. Yeah. So in that way, the first time I'll ever agree with Just Stop Oil, they are sort of right in that one sense, right?
Yeah.
That's my take-home message from it. You now support Just Stop Oil.
Yeah, absolutely.
OK.
About to spray some paint
in part 3. In the final section, we've got the Musk versus Zuckerberg cage fight, a sore soldier, and no naked women. Sorry, but it'll still be good. See you in a couple of minutes.
I joined GB News because I was sick and tired of not hearing my views being represented, not just mine, but so many people that I knew and spoke to.
I just couldn't get my voice out there. I couldn't say anything. I couldn't do anything. Whatever the narrative was, I kind of had to follow it.
GB News is there to provide a voice for those who have been ignored by the establishment media. We think different things. We've got a different style.
GB News is here to be optimistic and positive about the future.
It's real kind of dynamic and flowing, with the audience very much at the heart of it, like a big family.
Here at GB News, we talk about the things that matter to you.
Hearing the voices from right across our towns and cities, especially our towns.
All sides of the argument represented with a heavy dose of opinion.
We're on a mission here to make a difference.
And the GB News family really is here for you, and whatever time of day you can watch or listen.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel. Monday to Thursday, 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. Join me, Dan Wootton. I'll bring you the sharpest takes and hottest debates. Do you not believe in prisons?
I don't believe in prisons.
I'm completely stunned. I guarantee you there'll be no spin, no bias, no censorship.
I actually was personally quite offended by it.
And no reason to go to bed. So I guess they've always been quite woke. That's Dan Wootton tonight on TV, radio and online. Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
You've probably seen politicians interviewed 1,000 times, but we do it differently. We find out who they really are, we don't shout, we chat, and hopefully we bring a bit of light, not just heat. Did you know Kate Moss?
Apparently.
Do you have a pair of jeans or a pair of jeans?
No, of course I don't. What would I do with them?
My friends are like, oh my God, what's she doing now?
Join me every Sunday at 6 for Gloria Meets, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Weeknights on GB News from 6 p.m. You'll always get drama.
Please stop, Michelle.
I know, yeah.
Please stop.
Should I just shut up?
Romance.
You like me, I like you. There you go.
There you are. Well, don't tell anybody.
Adventure.
Etc.
That's the whole point.
And action.
Sergeant, the big green, my superstar panel, they're already at it. They're fighting. It's going to be quite a show.
Only on GB News. Britain's watching.
In a world of dull and predictable radio and TV shows.
Oh, hi. On Mark Dolan tonight, we've got big guests. We drill into the big stories of the day. The show adds up to a brilliant listening and viewing experience. Mark Dolan Tonight is the most entertaining current affairs show ever, and that's a fact. That's Mark Dolan Tonight, Friday, Saturday and Sunday from 9. Only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Headliners. We've got the Times now with terrible news for people who don't know any other way of seeing scantily clad women on the internet, Steve.
That's true. At the end, we should mention the websites. You might get your face scanned. Miss England pageant scraps the swimwear round. It's this beauty pageant, as it's called here, which I'll refer back to that later. Promised previously that it wouldn't bow to this movement, but now has gone, yep, we're going to get rid of it. I mean, meanwhile, the Rear of the Year competition still carries on, by the way, so that's worth considering. Can you really make a beauty pageant anything other than surface level, vacuous, oh, don't you look good? They've rephrased it and reframed it all the way through here, saying, no, the swimwear round is all about body confidence. And I don't think it is, because I don't wear a bikini, but if I did, I'd feel less body confident than if I was in a full suit. So I think that's it. The current Miss England, who's a scientist, 23, so that the swimwear will help the body confidence. Scientist, though, so, you know, clearly it's not just about looks.
Exactly.
My favourite quote from one of the contestants was, however, I understand that in pageantry, it's a lot more about our inner beauty from within. It really isn't. It's totally about the external beauty. That's what it is. It's a beauty pageant. It's how you look. Yeah. It's totally only that. And that's what it's supposed to be. Beauty, there's nothing wrong with beauty. It's aspirational. Remember the darts girls? I always talk about this. They got banned because some intellectuals hated beauty. You know,
some hairy feminist was like, oh, these women look better than me, so I want them banned.
Right. We all have different gifts. Very rare you get someone who's funny, intelligent and good looking like me. It's very rare you get the whole package. And you know, people
you
get
actually look like one of the feminists.
Thank you. People get different gifts, and there's nothing wrong with you. You happen to look good, and then you cultivate that, and other people cultivate other skills. I never understood why that's such a problem. And it's not sexist, because what about male bodybuilders? They wear less than these people. Those tiny underpants. They're all spray tanned, doing ridiculous poses. Why is that okay?
Yeah, and we're supposed to attain that without taking steroids. It's ridiculous. I mean, also one of the reasons for removing the bikini round was it's supposed to celebrate women achievers. Like, looking good in a bikini is an achievement. It's one of the finest achievements
Especially
a woman
while
can
saying
make.
how you would achieve world peace at the same time. You've got to remember your policies.
I find
we should introduce it to politics.
Yeah, why not?
I don't think nothing's solved here, is it? Now, Miss England doesn't have a bikini range, but OnlyFans is still a thing.
Exactly. So there we go. 3 men are upset about the bikini round going. Anyway, we've got the Mail now, and a female soldier wants £2 million for getting hurt. That must have been some broken nail, Nick.
Shocking. I disavow strongly the sexism of that intro. I'm a feminist. But yeah, super fit female soldier injured in exercise designed to test women's frontline combat readiness. Sues for $2 million. And she's called Captain Megan Lloyd, super fit, done all these ultramarathons and stuff. But what they did, they overloaded her with 32 kilos in weight and made her sort of do squats and stuff and suddenly hyperextend on her hip, and she damaged her hip. But then they're claiming she'd already damaged her hip in the past and it wasn't their fault and blah, blah, blah. And I don't know. I mean, obviously, I thought of a joke that was even worse than Leo's, and I'm just backing out of it. I don't know. I've given the story.
What was your joke? I
don't know. Something vague, misogynist. I couldn't be bothered. I couldn't be bothered with the tweets.
Okay.
It wasn't good enough. Carry on.
The headline's a bit misleading. It makes it look like we were testing to see if she was a good enough soldier and she failed.
Actually, it was the bikini round.
It failed on that one. But the Army didn't even design the test. They were teaming up with the university, doing some research. And the question is whether there was already like an underlying injury. So this story is not quite the thing that it looks from the headline.
It's a non-story.
But everybody I know who's served in the forces has completely wrecked knees and hips, and it batters you. You're marching, hiking, and in rough boots, carrying huge packs. So yeah, it does totally knacker your body.
But then is that what you sign up for, though? Kind of, it's part of the army, isn't it?
And not only do you sign up for that in the army, before doing actual research, there probably is a waiver before you take part in research. Exactly. So that's probably where it'll all come
There we go. Anyway, we've got the Mail now, and Zuckerberg versus Musk is the cage fight nobody saw coming, and Italy wants to bring it back to the Colosseum, Steve.
Yeah, well, they've been invited. They can use the Colosseum. It'd be nice, wouldn't it, if people aren't scratching in their partners' names into places like that. So this is the big fight, Musk versus Zuckerberg. Why are they thinking of doing it as a cage fight? If ever there should be two people who should do robot wars, imagine how good the robots would be. Lasers, quantum bombs. It would be amazing. But meanwhile, these two rich people having a fight. So I don't really care too much. I mean, it looks weight-wise. Musk's probably got the advantage, but Zuckerberg, he's done some of that Brazilian jiu-jitsu or something. There was a bit where Musk challenged the Meta CEO to a cage fight, was responded by saying, send me the location. The Apple boss would have gone along too, but used Apple Maps, went to the wrong cage. So, yeah, I mean, great, have a fight if you want, if not...
Yeah, well, Musk has said that the most entertaining outcome is the most likely. That's one of his laws, isn't it? So, given that, this will happen. And I saw Musk flipping that guy Lex Friedman the other day, and I actually now give him more chance than I did. And the top G has offered to train him, so anything can happen, right?
Amazing. The top G who follows you on Twitter.
Well,
moving on, we've got the Independent now, and there might not be a Colosseum for Musk and Zuckerberg to fight in if guys like this have their way, Nick.
Yeah, so tourist who carved name into Rome's Colosseum is British fitness trainer, I'm sorry, from Bulgaria. He's originally from Bulgaria. Don't pin this on us, Independent. Classic British hating from the Independent. So it's classic narcissism. He wrote his own name. His big mistake was, when you're going to, if you're worried about getting investigated, he wrote Ivan and Haley, 23. He gave the age. I mean, is that the year? That's the year, isn't it? That's the year.
Like a journalist.
He gave his first name and his girlfriend's name, and that's a lot to go on. It's not too smart. And so now he's going to face a fine of 15,000 euros and perhaps 5 years in prison for being a narcissist.
They'll never last as well. A relationship at that age. Now, you will go to prison for scratching in the details of a relationship. I had an ex once where we went to Paris and put one of those padlocks on the bridge.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, I hope that's not still there.
Although
probably still there.
One thing is, at least in prison, he'll have lots of time to scratch stuff on the wall, like the days he's been there.
OK, well, the show is nearly over, so let's take another quick look at Saturday's front pages. The Telegraph leads with French police at war with vermin as rioting spreads across nation. The Times has UK tourists are warned over travel to France. The Daily Mail has dentists will have to work for NHS. The Mirror has Kevin Spacey, a sexual bully. The Guardian leads with Goldsmith quits over Sunak climate apathy. And finally, the Daily Star has wreck off, you great galaz. And those were your front pages. And that's all we have time for. Thank you to my guests, Steve and Nick. Nick's back tomorrow at 11 p.m. with Junior Booker and Louis Schaefer. Good luck, Nick. And if you're watching at 5 a.m, stay tuned for The Breakfast Show, which is coming up just after this one. Good night. Bye.
First and foremost, I'm a GB News fan, and I was before I was working here. Just love the fact that we're asking the questions that a lot of establishment media won't ask.
With a bit of a twist, we not only want to inform you, but we want to keep you entertained.
It's worth the drive because you get in and the team's all ready and waiting, they're itching to go, and it's a proper little family.
GB News is the People's Channel.
It's the audience that makes the programme sing.
We're giving our viewers and our listeners a voice. I see the thousands of your letters, tweets, emails, you name it, coming in.
Britain is broken. How on earth did we get into this mess? But more importantly, how do we get out of it?
The establishment had their chance. Now we're here to represent you.
It's time for something different. It's time for GB News. I'm very patriotic. I believe in Britain. Our best days lie ahead.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
Join us here on GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
I'm Andrew Doyle.